when we talk about 5D, realize that what survives in 5D is awareness, becoming aware of these old patterns so that then you can embody a new aspect of yourself. Welcome back to another episode on Into the Vortex with Aaron Doughty. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you the major difference between the 3D to the 5D reality moving into 2021 and how we can cross the bridge into 5D. There'll be a lot of practical ideas in this video. I know sometimes we talk about 3D versus 5D and they sound like very esoteric terms that are kind of ungrounded, but my goal with this episode is to show you the practicality of it and to also vulnerably share with you some of the patterns that I'm becoming aware of in my own life and how I'm clearing those out so that in 5D, in 2021, in 5D, it's much easier for me to exist in that state of consciousness. So first off, Into the Vortex with Aaron Doughty. So that's the name of the podcast. It's recently been changed. It'll stay there, I promise. I said I promised last time because it was like something to do with Vortex, but Into the Vortex. And normally I will be recording these podcast episodes in Sedona, Arizona, which is a vortex in of itself. So that's kind of the magic of it too. I have a house that I just bought there that is being remodeled. It's the first house I've ever bought. I'm so excited for it. I am putting quite a bit of renovations into it for the next 3 weeks, including new floors, new paint, new granite countertops, painting the cabinets a different color, and it's something that's the podcast room is going to be pretty cool. There's going to be like a wood background, and those are going to be on the main channel as well. And the goal is that with the podcast, I'm able to bring more and more people onto the podcast. So having chairs where they're like facing each other, it's going to be really cool. You know, the solo episodes I enjoy doing, and it's just more practical as well. It's like easy for me to get up in the morning to make these episodes, but having somebody help me reach out to other people that I would love to have on the podcast will be the next intention, the next goal. In 3 weeks, I move into that place. Super excited. But until then, we're in the vortex of Vegas. A little bit different energy here, but hey, it's still a vortex. Now, the first thing that I think about 2021 that I wanted to share with you guys is I believe that the year 2021 in general energetically represents a year of massive embodiment, embodying the higher vibrational version of you, embodying what we could call our higher self, and understanding that when we channel or are in the energy of our higher self, we are in more alignment than ever. Things happen to us easier than ever. We don't have to try as hard. There's more synchronicity than ever before. And in 2021, I believe that many of us light workers are going to be stepping into that energy. And one of the main things that I think, the reasons I think that can happen now is because 2020 for me and for the collective consciousness and for many of you is and was all about clearing and integrating the shadow. The shadow is the unconscious part of ourselves that has been brought into awareness. And think of awareness as the light. Now, darkness is just an absence of light. It's what we're not aware of. It's funny, I was hearing Elon Musk in an interview. I had it on yesterday while I was like cooking and stuff like that. And there was like this interview of Elon Musk. And it was like this inspiring thing, but it was really funny. He was talking about like back in the, I don't know, it was the 90s it was a long time ago. But people were asking him about like his childhood and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, well, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the dark. And then I learned when I was 12 that all dark was a lack of protons or photons. And then I realized that it's pretty silly to be afraid of a lack of photons. That's all darkness is. It's a lack of photons. So it's kind of funny, like intellectual, nerdy way of looking at like being afraid of the dark. But like the darkness is a lack of light. It is a lack of photons. So 12-year-old Elon Musk, that was like, well, I realized how ridiculous it was to be afraid of a lack of photons. It's a very intellectual way of looking at it. But in the same way, when we're talking about our shadow is just the unaware aspect of ourself. It is the unaware parts of patterns that we have that we're not aware of. There are certain people in my life in 2020 that I realized I was attracting into my life because I was unaware of an old shadow that stemmed from childhood that was attracting people into my life, different energy dynamics. And it's as I look back, by the way, it is so obvious. But in the moment when I wasn't aware of it, there was a lack of photons. There was a lack of light. I wasn't aware of it. And it was attracting different energy dynamics to me. And those energy dynamics were reflecting back to me my own power. Now, in order for me to really embody, I'd say that 2021 for me is going to be a year of really embodying my own frame of reality. It's ironic to me that I bought this house at the end of 2020 after I've been doing a lot of shadow work, and the day of the close of this house, meaning I got the keys to this house, was December 21st, 2020. So December 21st, which I think was a very powerful, energetic time. That's when I got the keys. And now for the next 3 weeks, what's going to be happening is the house is being remodeled, then I move in, and 2021 is me. It's a representation as well as me owning my own house is a symbol for me of like being in my own frame. And one of the reasons being for this, I believe as well, is the energy dynamic of my childhood, for example, with a lot of the energy that I was clearing out from 2020, was that I felt safe in other people's frame. So this has been a huge epiphany for me. And this is something I was unaware of. But I look back to my childhood, and many of you may know my childhood, but in the, between 7 to 16 years old, I had an abusive ex-stepmom in my life. She was mentally, physically, emotionally abusive. My brother and I did not have much freedom at all. We were constantly in her frame of reality. And she would brainwash us not want to go see our real mom. We weren't allowed to at a certain point. My dad was a firefighter. He was gone half the time, there half the time, but he kind of just let it happen in a way because he was also didn't have a strong frame, so he was a part of her frame. And my ex-stepmom is also a narcissist. A narcissist is someone that has a very strong frame. And one of the reasons they have such a strong frame is because growing up, they didn't feel safe. So the way they decided to feel safe is either they were abandoned or they had to control their reality in order to feel safe. So one thing they did is they manipulated their environment. They manipulated the people around them. And then they became narcissists, which means they didn't feel, a narcissist is somebody that doesn't on the inside really feel worthy or important. So they have to like accentuate that feeling of being important and worthy. And they do that and they establish that frame and they impose it on other people. And then they get other people to feel less than. They will, in a way, minimize their frame so that they feel worthy. Now in 2020, in general, it was a year of massive shadow integration. And what we're seeing in reality, even when we look into the collective consciousness, is many people are becoming aware of the narcissistic tendency of some of the leaders. And I'm not just talking about Trump. I'm talking about the narcissism of the elite, whatever we want to call this. But there are people on the planet that have been controlling the dynamic of the power for a very long time. And many of us are becoming aware of that energy dynamic. And the way that a lot of the people, and by controlling the media, by controlling the perception, these are people that don't believe in their own power, so they believe they need to, in a way, control the power and dynamics of everybody else and keeping everyone else believing that they're not powerful. I believe there's people on this planet that know that we're all eternal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. And if they can make us believe that we're not powerful, then we continue to externalize and give away our power. We continue to agree to a reality that we may not really agree with or like as much, like taxes. And, we just agreed at a certain point, oh, yes, we will pay 30-40% taxes. This makes sense. and then we agree to it, and then it just becomes the norm. And being told to like do this, put this on and walk here, and then people just become so primed for it that then in order for them to feel safe, they think that they have to keep abiding by, what they're told from authority. So it's an interesting, as I go through this episode, I'll be putting the energy on the individual to collective, just to kind of show, because really the collective is just a reflection of the individual anyways. The shadow we're seeing in the collective is also a reflection of the shadow that's coming out within ourselves. So back to the whole ex-stepmom thing, I realized that from 7 to 16 years old, I felt safe in my ex-stepmom's frame, even though it was abusive, mentally, physically, emotionally abusive. And it's very interesting. I remember very distinctly that when my ex-stepmom and my dad divorced, and my brother and I had all this freedom. We were allowed to eat the food that we wanted to. We were allowed to eat we were very malnourished. We were able to eat second servings. We were able to watch TV. We were able to have friends. We were able to go to school activities. When all these things came and we were able to have them, I remember in that uncertainty, in that unknown, there was something kind of scary about it. I remember thinking to myself, man, they call this Stockholm Syndrome, I guess. But I remember thinking to myself, even though it was so painful and there's so much control, at least I felt safe. At least even though I had to sneak watching TV, I had to sneak food, at least when I went to bed at night, I felt like this, I didn't feel this anxiety of this unknown, which I started to feel once I had all this freedom. And I see how people get stuck into manipulative, abusive relationships because of that feeling of safety. To listen to the whole episode, I go deeper on a lot of these concepts. I share even more of my shadow and what you really need to know as a light worker in 2021. The whole episode will be right here or in the top of the description box below. You can listen to it there. And if you didn't know, there's also the Into the Vortex podcast with Aaron Doughty is on iTunes and Spotify. Super easy to listen to. And there's hundreds of other episodes you can listen to just like this. And it's where I put a lot of my energy, and I think you'll enjoy it. So you can see those links below. Other than that, I'll see you on the next episode. Peace, much love, and namaste.